You know, a lot of people believe 2021 was one of the worst years we ever had, not only for what's going on with COVID, but celebrity deaths and people that were close to a lot of individuals across the world passing away. Well, this is just continuing in 2022. The incomparable and the legendary and the probably the greatest voice in rock opera history, Meatloaf, has passed away at the age of 74. Now, to put this in perspective, I'm 56. I was alive in the height of the success of the Bat Out of Hell album, and let me tell you, the height of success doesn't really describe how big he was. Every day in the mid-1970s, some radio station, some TV channel, some person was either humming or singing or watching songs from the Battle of Hell soundtrack. Paradise by the Dashboard Light, the cover song. 203 Ain't Bad. He basically was sent, according to a DJ in Quebec at the time, to save rock and roll from itself. Now, he sold tens of millions of copies of Bat Out of Hell with his great partner and songwriter, Jim Steinman, who passed away, unfortunately, last year. Meatloaf said in recent months Jim was him and he was Jim, and that he would be seeing Jim soon, and his prediction, unfortunately, came true. So today is a tribute to Meatloaf. We're going to be quoting from a very important Rolling Stone article, which I think was put together just hours before he passed away, again at the age of 74. We're going to be quoting directly. There's no way that I can do a justice to any podcast with all my memories and information I've called over the years on Meatloaf. Rolling Stone did a very good job, so I'll be quoting from it. There's some good articles out there from CBC, CNN, if you want to check it out. The music is there, especially on YouTube. Don't forget, like, some big songs still on video, still available for free. Now, according to Rolling Stone, Meatloaf, the singer and, of course, the actor, best known for Bat Out of Hell, and as well as varied roles in shows such as the Rocky Horror Picture Show and Fight Club, died Thursday at the age of 74. The news was confirmed by the singer's family in a Facebook post, and a cause of death was not given. Now, according to the release, our hearts are broken to announce that the incomparable Meatloaf passed away tonight, surrounded by his wife Deborah, daughters Pearl and Amanda, and close friends. We know how much he meant to so many of you, and we truly appreciate all the love and support as we move through this time of grief. We thank you for your understanding and our need for privacy at this time. Now, he first found success on a Broadway stage in the groundbreaking musical Hair, and had a brief but memorable role in the Rocky Horror Picture Show as the ill-fated delivery boy Eddie, but it was the 77 album Bat Out of Hell that turned him into a superstar and rock and roll icon. Now, the songs on Bat Out of Hell were written by stage composer Jim Steinman, but Meatloaf's boundless passion and bravado brought them to life in incredible ways. I sang every song we ever did in character, he told Rolling Stone. I left me. I was not method. I didn't have to find something in my past life to be able to sing his songs. I became the song. That explains why Meatloaf always saw himself as a very unique figure in the rock world. I'm different from Bette Midler or Cher or Sinatra. Of course, he did that duet with Cher, Dead Ringer. Meatloaf told Rolling Stone in 93, this might be a huge ego thing, but I tend to think of myself as a Robert De Niro of rock. I know that's absurd, but my idols are either sports figures or Robert De Niro. Now, he not only presented the song, he presented his soul within the song. So no one could cover him and do it justice. There's only one person I know, and it partly made her a superstar to the next level, that did it. It was Celine Dion. And like Celine Dion, she had that, Meatloaf had that operatic presentation style that God gives you. You don't learn that. That's God-given talent. My dad once said that God brought Meatloaf to everybody to make them feel what it was like to be into the rock and roll song. I think that sums it up. Now, Bat Out of Hell went 14 times platinum, thanks to the single, of course, Paradise by the Dashboard Light. You took the words right out of my mouth, known as Hot Summer Nights. Of course, Bat Out of Hell and 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad. But the pressure to create a follow-up caused Meatloaf to have an emotional breakdown, and he temporarily lost his singing voice. Now, It was the beginning of a dark chapter in his life marked by lawsuits, commercially disastrous records, and significant financial woes. I felt like a leper, Meatloaf said in '93. I felt like I was on an island with my wife and my 2 daughters. However, in what Rolling Stone calls one of the most stunning comebacks in rock history, I'm thinking one of the most stunning commercial comebacks in rock history. He reteamed with Steinman to record Bad in the Hell 2, Back in the Hell. The album went out to sell an astounding 14 million copies, thanks in large part to the worldwide hit single, I Would Do Anything for Love, But I Won't Do That. Now, it was an overtop song with the big, what they call Dynamo at the end. And actually it was a big song in all communities. It was big amongst young girls. It was big amongst middle-aged people, gay people across North America. Saw as an anthem for basically gay couples and finding what's best for their relationships. I kid you not. So it was a cross-border appeal, and big in the black community as well, because the power ballads that were big in the 70s and 80s in Motown, Meatloaf kind of used some of that style as well. Now, born Marvin Lee Day in Dallas on September 27, 47, he started off as a chunky baby, and he's claimed his father named him Meat when he was just 4 days old. His father was also a violent alcoholic that regularly beat him, and things at school weren't much better since his large size caused the kids to mercilessly tease him. Things turned around in high school when his stature proved to be an asset on the football squad. He also discovered he suddenly had a 3.5 octave vocal range his sophomore year after a 12-pound shot landed on his head during a track and field event. For the rest of his life, according to legend, he believed the accident somehow created his singing voice. No, but I mean, it's a good story. When Meatloaf was just 18, his mother died after a long battle with breast cancer. Shortly after the funeral, his father lunged into the teenager's bedroom in a state of drunken fury with a butcher knife in his hand. I rolled off the bed just as he put that knife right in the mattress, he said in 2018. I fought for my life. Apparently, I broke 2 ribs in his nose and left the house barefoot in a pair of gym shorts and a t-shirt. Now, seeing no reason to remain in Texas, Meatloaf moved to LA to seek out a career in show business. He formed a group called Meatloaf Soul and opened up for the acts like Taj Mahal and Janis Joplin. But he didn't find any traction until he was cast in Hair in '68. This led to a record contract with the Motown subsidiary Rare Earth and a 1972 album of duets with female singer Shawn Murphy under the banner Stoney and Meatloaf. And this became part of his presentation, having male-female duets with some of the key singers of his era. Now, when the album failed to find an audience, who moved to New York and was cast in the Public Theater's production of More Than You Deserve, a musical created by Steinman. Meatloaf's big moment of the show was More Than You Deserve. When I sang that song, everyone stood on their feet and went crazy, he told RS. That happened every night all week. By the end I was going, maybe I should work with this guy Steinman. People tell me I can sing, but I'll never sing like that. Now, Simon and Meatloaf formed a tight bond that only strengthened when he hit the road with a National Lampoon roadshow. Simon played piano, and Meat was the understudy to John Belushi, but during that time he started work on songs and dream of a collaborative album. It took a while to actualize, and in '75 the partnership took a slight pause when Meatloaf took the role of Pompadour motorcycle freak Eddie in the Rocky Horror Picture Show. The duo finally managed to release Bad in the Hell in October '77, thanks and helped to Steve Popovich of Cleveland International Records and the great producer Todd Rundgren. At the first release, critics dismissed Bad in the Hell as a hideously overblown mess, but relentless touring and appearance on Saturday Night Live managed to win over a huge fan base. SNL broke the egg, and Bad in the Hell spilled out all over the world. We went from selling no records at the end of May to being 5 times platinum, said Meatloaf. From that point on, I was always at 11. I would get up, go to the morning radio, go to sound check, do the interviews, do the show, sometimes go to the radio station after the show. I go to the Rocky Horror Picture Show screenings, and on and on. Now, the attempt to record a follow-up was an absolute disaster. The problem was a million different forces. His manager, his lawyers, his vocal cords, his brain. Simon told Rolling Stone in '93. I actually just left. I spent 7 months trying to make a follow-up to Batter to Hell with him, and it was an infernal nightmare. He had lost his voice, he had lost his house, and he was pretty much losing his mind. By the time he emerged from the bandits in '81 with Dead Ringer, Meat Loaf's fans had moved on, and the album was a huge commercial disappointment. Although the song Dead Ringer with Cher reminds us what is still considered one of the greatest rock tracks of all time. Now, follow-up albums, Midnight to Lost and Found, Bad Attitude, a very underrated album, and Blind Before I Stop fared even worse, and Meat Loaf wound up declaring bankruptcy. It was horrible, Meat Loaf said in '93. The kids took a beating. My wife would try to write a check at a grocery store, and he wouldn't take it, even though it was fine. So I just worked. I always have. No big deal. But he never stopped touring, particularly in Europe, when he maintained a loyal audience, and he found acting work in movies like Wayne's World, Leap of Faith, and The Gun in Betty Lou's Handbag. Now, throughout this time, Stein was still producing great hits for artists such as Air Supply, Bonnie Tyler, and of all people, Barbra Streisand. After years of talk and false starts, he finally got back with Meat Loaf in '93 for Batter to Hell 2, Back in the Hell. Jim doesn't own this, Meat Loaf told Q before the album came out, but a psychic told me that Jim has written his best stuff already, and he'll never write like it again. If this doesn't do 3 or 4 million, it'll be cold day in hell before he let us do another. The Psychic, of course, was a bit off, as Batter to Hell 2 became the least likely hit album of the grunge era, and the lead-off single, I Would Do Anything for Love, But I Won't Do That, was far and away the biggest song of his entire career. The album hit number 1 in the Hot 100, and he won a Grammy for Best Solo Rock Vocal Performance. Now, this album, pretty well, it didn't kill grunge, but it gave it a beating because people wanted that operatic style more than you wanted what they call low-end, lo-fi production. Although grunge was successful for a number of years after, you saw more and more artists, including Celine Dion and various operatic singers, take over. Now, Meat Loaf is suddenly a household name again, and he landed acting jobs in everything from Spice World to Nash Bridges, and as well as a memorable role in Fight Club. The follow-up albums to Batter to Hell 2, Back in Hell were largely underwhelming affairs that were made without the cooperation of Steinman, and their attempt to craft a true Bat Tree fell apart when unfortunately Steinman had a stroke. There were also many lawsuits between the two parties, but Meat Loaf felt the public didn't truly understand him. Now, we never sued each other, no matter what people write, he said in 2021. It's a fucking lie to say otherwise. I never sued him. He never sued me. Our managers sued each other, but my heart never sued Jim, and I know Jim's heart never sued me. Meat Loaf continued his heavy tour schedule throughout the 2000s, but the sheer physicality of the stage show began taking a toll on his health. Anybody knows the size of Meat Loaf, he was probably well over 200, and of course the aches and pains caught up on him in his 50s and 60s. He collapsed on stage in 2016 while singing I Would Do Anything for Love, But I Won't Do That at a show in Edmonton. It wound up being the last tour of his career. Now, when Rolling Stone caught up with him at his Texas home in 2018, he said he spent much of his time watching reruns of Law & Order and Blue Bloods, playing the online role-playing game Gladiator, and arguing with his fans on his Facebook page. But he did acknowledge that his once mighty singing voice wasn't what it used to be. What's different now is the tone of my voice. You call it flat or out of key? It's not. It's just that my tone is completely different from what it was, and there's nothing I can do about it. Now, when Steinman died in 2021, Meat Loaf spent 2 days on the phone with Rolling Stone talking about the long partnership, pausing occasionally to cry. I don't want to die, but I may die this year because of Jim. I'm always with him, and he's right here with me now. I've always been with Jim, and Jim has always been with me. We belonged heart and soul to each other. We didn't know each other, we were each other. So, let's look at this in perspective, ladies and gentlemen. Somewhere in North America or across the world, there's a girl that was 17 years old in 1977. She's 62, 63 now. and she's listening to this, or she's watching the reports about Meatloaf's passing and thinking, where have all the years gone? Where has my youth gone? My joy of back then. But what's nice about Meatloaf, he allowed people who had that drive-in mentality would go to drive-in and party on the weekends, Friday or Saturday, and said, you can listen to music and you can have a good time. And like I said, you could be depressed listening to Meatloaf songs and have a good time. Meatloaf once said on Canadian TV, Much Music, he said, I'm here for the fans, I'm here for myself, I'm here for everybody. And that sums it up. In the history of rock and roll, he's a top 10 voice. And I know this will sound completely off the wall. Mike Nesmith passed away recently. The Monkees were great voices of rock and roll. People like the Monkees and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Who, certain other singers, like Meatloaf. Meatloaf did it all on himself. He was a band, but he was a solo singer, if that makes any sense, because he was playing many characters on the stage. And I know one thing. If you're going to pick up any vintage album from the 1970s you never listened to, I would recommend picking up Bat Out of Hell and play it and be prepared to have your mind blown. When I first heard it, I said to myself, my God, I've heard like what they call a rock opera before, but not like this. This is just beyond. And when I saw him first physically, I said to myself, he looks like that and he's singing like that. It was almost like, a female diva, the fat lady sings. Well, he was a fat man that sing, and he could brought it. And my buddy said when he saw Meatloaf in concert once, he could feel him singing from his head to his toes in his seat. Can you imagine? That's what Meatloaf was. He touched every part of your soul. So on this Friday, January 21st, 2022, we say thank you, Meatloaf. If you like what we're doing here with our podcast channel, with our tribute podcast, let us know with a like, comment, subscribe. And like Meatloaf said, you took the words right out of my mouth. And we're going to miss you, brother. And don't forget, you're only as good as the love you leave. And he left lots of love. Thanks for listening. Bye.